let you guys know that we're going to use 2 straps if you have to. And if you're at home, it's not vital at all. We're just going to play around with crow pose. And one of the variations that I like to teach is with 2 straps. So if you've got them, great. And if you don't, that's fine. So crow pose is technically in the arm balance family. Some people find it daunting, some people don't. And we're gonna treat it more like exploration. Kind of think about it. I found that once I thought about arm balances, like physics, knowing where my center of gravity is, it's a lot easier to lift the butt up into the sky. It's a lot easier once you figure that out. But it's just exploration. So we're gonna do a little bit of flow and then I'll throw in crow several different times just to explore. And Connie, are you familiar with crow pose? Yeah, okay. Do y'all know what crow pose is now that I'm saying it?
I'm sure.
Okay, so I'll just demonstrate. I usually take crow pose on my forearms, which is called baby crow because my wrists don't bend. So I kind of avoid wrist balances, arm balances, or I'll take a variation. So for me, how it looks is I'll take my knees up into my armpits and I'll bend my elbows like they're chaturanga arms, but I'll come forward, place the forearms on the ground, and then I have to think about physics. I got to keep moving forward until my feet go. Crow pose. If you were taking it on your arms, it will look very similar, but you're balanced here. And just because my wrists don't bend, I don't actually lift up. I never practice. But even if you don't lift, there's still a lot of engagement going on. And think about, even just for a moment, how much hip flexion I have. So I'm going to turn sideways just so you guys see. My hips are really bent. They're really folded forward. I'm stretching through my butt like there's no tomorrow. And there's also rounding across my spine here, and I feel my shoulder blades separating. So today's class is really just kind of move through that. And whether you take flight in your crow or not, doesn't matter. It's can you tap into that engagement? Okay, so let's get started on our backs today. When you arrive onto your back, just pause for a moment and notice what's going on in your mind. Sometimes when the teacher says, arm balances, all these crazy thoughts and doubts and judgments and nervousness rush across the mind. Can you, just for this class together, let go of those expectations? Let go of those fears. And invite the breath to, or invite the mind, the thoughts within the mind to connect to the breath. Here at the beginning of class, I'm going to encourage you, as you touch base with that exhalation, can you invite it to be a beat or two longer than the inhalation? Oftentimes, when we allow that exhalation to be longer than the inhalation, we're sending a signal from the body to the brain. And then from the brain to the body that all is calm, that we are safe. It's a nice little practice that we do here on the mat that we can take out into the world. When life gets a little hectic, when the kids are yelling, when the lines are long, when the packing becomes too much. To just connect to the breath and invite that exhale to be a bit longer.
Perfect. Take another round of breath, maybe 2. And then stretch the toes away from you. Reach the arms overhead, full body stretch. You're welcome to interlace the fingers and roll the palms away from the head. And then release that. Hug your right knee in toward the chest. Interlace the fingers over the shin. And I want you to take a couple of breaths here. And as you exhale, see if you can draw that knee closer to the chest. Thinking again about hip flexion, how that hip comes in. If you've got a little bit of a belly, in our house we call it a panza. If you've got a panza, bring the knee to the outside of the belly. Or even move the flesh of the belly out of the way. We want to think about structurally deeper past the flesh, into the bones, into the muscles. Take one more here. And then extend that right leg all the way up to the ceiling. Straighten it as much as you can. Find a few circles of your ankle. Maybe you bend and extend through the toes. And then flex the foot. Let the heel lead as that leg descends to the mat. Keep reaching out with that heel. Find length through the leg. And then draw the left knee in toward the chest. Interlace the fingers around the leg and concentrate here on the breath. And there's always that invitation to just move flesh out of the way. We're focusing on that hip flexion, drawing it as close in as we can. You might notice a warming sensation along the hamstrings or even the bum itself. Begin to extend that leg into the ceiling. Take a few circles, a little bit of nurturing love here through ankles and toes. And then reach with that heel. Press that heel up toward the ceiling. Let the entire leg descend down to the mat. Keep reaching the heel away from you. Notice how the front side of the leg tends to activate, to stretch. And then draw the right knee in again. We're going to do something very familiar, and then we'll take it and just explore with it. So I want you to hold on to the right knee. Press the low back into the ground. Start to lift the chest toward the knee. Something we've seen before many times. We're just going to switch the legs. Left leg draws in, right leg draws out. And switch again. If you want a little extra oomph, hover the leg that extends. If you want a little extra oomph, keep drawing the chest toward the knee. Take it maybe 3 more times each side. Feel free to move quickly or slowly, whatever works for you. And then when you finish up with that set, release, lower down, find yourself in a little mini Shavasana, and notice in the body what is fired up. It might be the muscles, it might be the belly, it might be the breath. You might have already instinctively engaged into that Ujjayi breath that warms the body. Same sequence, but we're going to change it up here. I'm going to give you the option to let the hands go alongside the body. So no hands. Draw the right knee into the body. Lift the chest up toward the knee. This should be more challenging for most of you because we're using active strength. Switch the legs. And again. Switch. And again. Keep going. If at any time you want to come back in and hold on to the knee, you can. We've got about 2, maybe 3 more each side. And then as you feel complete with that, release down, find a little mini Shavasana. I'm gonna have you check in with the muscles of the neck. Oftentimes those upper shoulders, the trapezius muscles, they get all involved. So maybe you take a moment here and just turn the head side to side. Intentionally, purposely trying to soften through the muscles of the neck. Perfect. Come back through center, reach the hands up toward the ceiling. So arms are coming straight out of the shoulders. Flex the hands as if you could hold the roof up with your palms. Reach the butt of the palm, the heel of the palm up toward the ceiling. Notice how the shoulders kind of lift up off the ground, and then just plop the shoulders back down. Do that 2 more times, please. And then pause for a moment, lift the legs up into the ceiling, little dead bug here. Just notice how that feels. I'm gonna flex my feet and my hands as if I'm standing on the ceiling. Feel free to bend the knees a little bit. We wanna press the low back into the ground. Lift the hands toward the ceiling. Notice, hold there. Notice how the spine rounds, not just along the spine, but also side to side. So not just top to bottom, but side to side. And then release. This time we're going to press hands and heels up toward the ceiling. Keep the low back pressing down. Keep the head on the ground. And then return to the mat. Take that 3 more times, please. Seems like a super small movement, but I know for me, my belly is already like, whoa, on fire. As you finish up, hug the knees into the chest, take a little side to side roll. Then come back through center. A little bit of play here. Feel free to smile ahead of time. I always find it's easier if I smile. We're going to roll from the tailbone to the crown of the head. Just rock and roll several times. Gain a little bit of momentum. Maybe as you roll toward the crown of the head, the hips rise. Maybe as you roll forward, you're like, ooh, I could probably come up to a squat or to a stand. Try it out. Eventually, we're going to all meet standing up. Okay, I'm going to come back down again because this is really interesting in studio. I find that my belly is a little bit bigger, and if I widen my knees as I come forward, I can use my arms to reach and lift. So try that. Keep going. It's again physics. It's physics. You have to be able to reach far enough with the momentum to gain it. You got it, Connie girl. Yes. Oh, I didn't mean to startle you. Come on, come on. Our little bums are getting heavy, right? It feels like that's the that's the I don't know the words I want to use. Y'all ever have a brain fart where you're just like, I can't think of the words I want to use? That's the obstacle. Obstacle is the word I'm trying to say. That the bum is heavy and that's the obstacle. But it's also the way we round through the spine, not just forward like a cat, but also rounding like we're drawing everything in, like we're holding a big ball. So let's come to stand. You can be at the top of the mat. You can be in the middle of the mat. Put a soft bend in the knees. I want you to draw your tailbone down and then bring the arms forward as if you are holding a big ball and you've got to suck the belly in to make space for that big beach ball. Stay there. Notice how active that is. And then press into the feet and reach the arms up. Find yourself in an upward salute. Exhale, fold.
Half lift, please. And a fold. Bend the knees so much, hands come down to the ground. If you want to separate the feet a little bit, take the toes nice and wide. We're going to send the hips down to the heels for a squat. Oh. Into a yogi squat malasana, that's it. That same feeling you had when you were holding the ball. Reach the arms forward, draw the spine back. Bring that ball in nice and tight, close to you. And then release. Hands come to the ground, find yourself in child's pose. We're gonna bring the knees together, they don't have to touch, but a little bit closer underneath the belly. I wanna feel the belly press into the tops of the thighs. Round through the head. Try to bring the forehead down toward the mat. Maybe you stack your fist or grab a block, your choice. Several breaths here, please. Perfect. Stretch the arms forward, walk the hands over to one side, doesn't matter which. Stretch the hands away from you. Oh, send the opposite hip back. So my hands went right, my hips are going left. And then walk the hands through middle, take that stretch on the other side. Bring the hands back through center. Tabletop pose. Tuck the toes, send the hips up, down dog. It's our first one of class today. Take a moment here and pedal it out, wiggle around. We're gonna stay for about 5 breaths. I'm gonna just turn the heat off. I had to get the cool out, and now I'm like, oh wait, I don't necessarily need it. Then ripple the body forward into plank pose. So the shoulders come over the wrists, excellent. Can you draw the belly in a little bit and maybe round across the spine? Almost as if we're holding that beach ball. Yes, beautiful. I'm gonna shift my torso forward, coming up high on my toes. I'm gonna lower my knees to the ground. If you want full chaturanga, you can. We bend the elbows and send the chest almost to the ground, but not all the way there. And then glide the body forward, come into cobra pose. Tuck the toes, down dog. That was a lot of different cues there. So we're just gonna explore that same flow one more time. Ripple forward into plank. Want to come high up on the tippy toes, round through the spine, as if you've got that ball in between you and the mat. Lower the knees, bend the elbows, hover the chest over the ground, and then glide forward. Cobra pose. Send the body back. You can take the knees wide here for child's pose. We're going to bend the elbows and reach the hands up toward the sky. Take a little wiggle, a circling through the wrist, through the fingers. Stretch the hands forward, grip the mat with your hands. Come through tabletop into down dog. Right leg lifts. We reach that heel behind us as if we're holding up the wall behind us, that imaginary wall or real. Reach it through. Draw that right knee toward the nose underneath the body, and then shoot the leg out again. 2 more, just like that. The next time, bring it all the way forward, step it through, high lunge. Press into
We stay up high on the back toes. Ooh, that's even harder, right? Super duper hard. Take a peek, notice where your blocks are. We're gonna lower our left knee to the ground, reach for our blocks. Hopefully they're somewhat nearby. Take them to the highest level and just send the hips back. Rock back and forth a few times here. Straightening and bending the front knee. The next time the front knee bends, pause there. That's where we'll meet. I'm going to take the block under my left hand. I'm going to bring it all the way down to the lowest level. Place my hand on it, tuck the back toes, lift the back knee. Move into a twist here. Reach the right arm toward the sky. Perfect. Bring that right hand towards your hip or the other block, your choice. Straighten the front leg. So you come out of the twist and both legs are lifted from the mat. We're just repeating that. Bending of the front knee and straightening of the front knee. Very mindfully move the blocks out of the way. Bring the hands on the inside of that front foot. Step it back down dog. Ripple forward into plank. Full chaturanga, or I'm going to stay with knees the whole class, but you've got that option. Lower the body down. Try not to touch the mat. Hover through, slide, and lift through the chest. Tuck the toes, down dog. Left leg lifts. Press the heel back. We'll stretch it back as far as you can. And then draw that knee to nose underneath the body. Really curl in and extend. As you move through this, see if you can round across the back of the body. See if you can separate the shoulder blades. Next time it comes through, step it all the way forward. Press into the feet, lift up, high lunge. Perfect. Lower the hands, find your blocks, lower the back knee. Little half Hanumanasana, send the hips back, then bend the front knee. Moving into that twist. Hand on the right stays on the block if you like it. You don't have to. Tuck the toes, lift the back knee. Left arm lifts as we roll the chest to the left side. Perfect. Bring your hands back to the block. We unroll from the twist and we explore what it feels like to straighten the front leg again. This time without the support of that back knee on the ground. The next time the leg bends, just slide the blocks off to the side. Hands on the inside of that left foot, glide it back, three-legged dog, then down dog. And pause and breathe. Next time you're ready to move, ripple forward into plank. Take your lowering down, that extending of the belly, opening through the chest, down dog. Begin to tiptoe the feet all the way toward the top of the mat, toward the hands. Half lift when you arrive, extend through the spine. And fold as you exhale. Come all the way up. Reach the arms up and overhead. And then take the hands down by the side. find yourself just standing in Tadasana. Feel how the feet root into the earth. And then imagine, visualize gathering all that energy from the earth, and notice how the rest of the body lifts up toward the sky. Circle the arms up and overhead. And then fold forward. Half lift. And a fold. I want you to bend the knees so much that the hands come down to the mat for a little support. You can always place hands on blocks if that gives you more support. We're going to take the right foot, cross it behind your left. So we're crossing the ankles. We want to still keep the feet connected. Notice we're crossing the ankles, so the knees might come apart, and that's totally fine. Take the hands out to your left, away from the mat. Send the hips to the right. Give yourself space here to explore what this feels like with bent knees, with straight knees. And then come back through center, uncross the ankles. Try that on the other side. Left behind right. Hands go to that right corner. We reach the hips back. If you remember, try to soften through the neck. And then return to center. Half lift. And fold. Step the right foot to the back of the mat. High lunge. Press into the feet. Lift up. And do a little standing balance sequence pose here. So from high lunge, we're going to really think about rooting into the front foot. Hinging the hips over that front knee, taking the hands to the ground, lifting the back leg for standing splits. Let the head dangle down. Think about engaging through that right bum cheek. See if you can lift it a little bit higher. And then return to high lunge. Bend through the front knees. Back foot comes to the ground. We lift up. High lunge. Now just give yourself a little bit of space. Some of us is going to be 1 breath per movement. Some of us is going to be 7 breaths per movement. But you just explore going back and forth between the two. Coming from high lunge into standing splits. From standing splits into high lunge. Take it again, just noticing. Love the blocks. In here in studio, we've got blocks underneath our hands for a little bit extra support. If you're still moving through that flow, know that we'll meet each other in high lunge. Is your left leg tired yet? Mine is.
That's why I grabbed blocks.
Root into that left foot. This time the back leg is going to come up and into the chest, just like we did on the ground when we were lying on our backs. Move from this into high lunge. 2 more times, just those 2 simple things. Knee to chest, high lunge. The movement's simple, but it's not easy, right? Perfect. Fold forward, step the feet back, down dog. You can choose to flow through a vinyasa here if you'd like, or you can just linger in down dog for a few more breaths. Then we'll explore that on the other side. Left leg lifts. We step it all the way forward. Press into the feet, lift up. Ooh, I did the wrong leg, y'all. Sorry. So if you have your left leg forward, fold again. Step it back, down dog. Right leg lifts. Step it forward, high lunge. Hopefully you're on the other side now. And again, just starting with those two transitions from high lunge into standing splits. Reach the belly over the thigh, hands to the floor or blocks, lift the back leg. And then let that foot become heavy to the ground and rise up again. Perfect. I'm going for maybe 3 in a row. Knowing that we'll meet in that high lunge. Changing the sway of that back leg. So from high lunge, we're rooting into that front foot, lifting the left knee into the chest, and then swinging it back. 2 more, please. Lower the hands. Step it back, child's pose. As we come into child's pose, notice how that crease through the hips, maybe it's warmed up a bit. Maybe your bum has warmed up or the back hamstring. Just begin to notice that. And then lift yourself up. We'll come into our first exploration of crow pose. I'm going to take my blocks. I'm going to put one block about where my head would be. The other block I'm going to put underneath my toes. Oftentimes, people need a little perch to lift the bum. That's what that block for your toes are. And there's also this fear of, oh, my head, it's going to hit the ground, right? It has happened before, so just be mindful. I tend to tell people, keep your gaze toward the top of the mat, not down straight. Because where your gaze goes, that's where you'll land. And if you go forward and you fall, you're avoiding the nose. If you look down and you fall, you might break your nose. So just be mindful, be careful. And then I'm going to think about coming through tabletop and finding a squat on my blocks. Toes are rooted to that back block. And again, the blocks here are just for adjustments, just for estimations. We want to bring some people like the actual tricep against the knee. Some people like the tricep or the bicep on the inside of the knee, your choice. And we're just going to play around here, and arms are nice and straight, they're nice and long. And I want you to round through the back. Think about that ball that you're holding. And then start to shift the weight forward, bend the elbows. The tops of the arms become like a shelf. And then send the body back. And then just try that movement a couple of times. If you want to take flight, maybe you lift the toes of one foot and then to lift the toes of the other foot. And I'm just watching as y'all shift and rock. The most important thing here is drawing the belly in, rounding across the spine. Woohoo! 1 second counts, girl. 1 second counts. Connie took a risk. She's like, I'm going to try it. Woohoo! Yay, Christina! Awesome. I love seeing y'all try. That's fantastic. And then when you're done with that, know that we're going to come back in. We're going to try several different ways. So just set the blocks off to the side or at the top of the mat and meet one another in down dog. Several deep breaths, just letting go of whatever that practice of crow looked like for you. And then returning to that flow, right leg lifts, step it all the way forward, high lunge. Fold forward, standing splits, back leg lifts, high lunge. Adding here, that back knee is coming into the chest as you stand. And then taking it back. Folding forward, down dog. One more time, same side, just like that. Right leg lifts. You step it forward, rise up, high lunge. Standing splits. High lunge. Back leg, knee to chest. High lunge. Down dog. Let's go directly to the other side. Left leg lifts. Step it forward, high lunge. Standing splits. High lunge. Back knees coming to chest. And then high lunge. One more time, you do, I'll watch. From down dog. We'll walk the feet forward. And I want you to come all the way to the top, just about the third of the way to the top. And what I'm doing here is just making sure I've got mat as I come into crow again. You can slide a block underneath the forehead if you liked that. Here's the variation. Cross the right ankle behind the left. This time, take your knees really wide. So ankles are crossed as we come into a little squat. Set up our arms to make our shelf. We want to feel contact, arms against legs. This time, as we practice coming into crow, try to keep your ankles crossed. Then you only have one ankle, 1 foot to lift. And I'll demonstrate. I'm going to come down to forearms just because that's how I practice. I'm going to shift the body forward, press the legs into my arms. I only have to lift that left foot. And I can rock in and out. Some people might find this way easier. Some of you might find it harder. If you want to play with the baby crow and take it to forearms, you can. If you want to come back to the traditional, you can. Little bit different, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of hip flexor strength that has to be engaged to keep the knees drawn in. When you're ready, we'll try it to the other side. So maybe let's take a little half salute. Find yourself in a forward fold. And then a half lift. And a fold. Come all the way up. Reach the arms up and overhead. And then fold again. Bend the knees so much, hands come to the floor for support. Left ankle behind right. Knees go out wide. You're kind of scooting down into a squat. We want to feel the contact of arms against legs, legs against arms, the rounding of the spine. You can stay right there and just hold that activity, that engagement. You can play around with shifting the body a little bit more forward, floating the toe of the right foot. There's space to come in and out.
I don't ever get frustrated.
Don't worry if you're frustrated. It's okay. That's why we're approaching it as exploration.
My hip flexors aren't very strong.
Then this work, you are developing the hip flexor work. You know, a lot of times people are like, oh, it's all in the wrist for crow, but there's so much more going on that we can all develop it. Let's find ourselves seated. Huh, that's my English major for you. Let's find ourselves seated comfortably. Just take the arms out in front of you. Make a little fist and then flick the fingers out. Make fist, flick. Notice every time you flick, the muscles of the forearms will start to activate. Then they come into a fist and find some wrist circles here. Take those circles in the other direction. Interlace the fingers, take the elbows nice and wide and pretend like you're doing the wave here. Think about wiggling through the wrist, wiggling through the fingers. Try to take that wave in the opposite direction. A little bit of brain work there. And then pause. And let's just think about this for a minute. We've done crow 3 different ways. We've done it with the ankles crossed. We've done it with blocks under our feet with ankles not crossed. We also did it when we were on our back and you were doing this and lifting up. That's crow pose. You're developing all the muscles along the spine, but without the added pressure of gravity or the weight of your physical body. Works all the same muscles. But I'm going to offer you a third one. It's one of my favorites, but it's really challenging for a lot of people. So, like I said before, we're going to use 2 straps. If you're at home and you only have one, then you'll come into any one of those 3 variations we already tried in practice. If you're here in studio with me, I'm going to think about, and I actually take my straps into really small loops and I start in squat because that strap is going to wrap around my ankle and my hip flexor. And I'm going to make them as tight as possible. So I'm thinking about, can I bring my ankle to touch my bum? Most people can't, but I'm going to try. And then I'm going to strap it in place. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Oftentimes when we're in crow pose, the feet fly away from the bum, which gives us a sense of instability. So when we take the straps and lock the feet in toward the bum, it becomes a little bit more stable. And it's also eye-opening because we are approaching it not as a wrist balance, but more about core strength and hip flexor. Movement's still the same. I'm going to stretch my body out, bring my belly in between my legs. And again, I take it on the forearm. So I may need to put a knee into underarm pit. And I'm going to rock forward. And then I've got to think about engaging my belly to lift my feet. Give yourself some space just to explore, just to play around, to notice. Thighs coming in. That's it. Oh, yeah. Draw the hips. Yes. It's all straight. Oh. If you are locked in the straps, there's no easy way to come out. I have to just kind of lie to one side and try to stretch them out. Oh. Maybe there's a breath or two more if you want to explore more. Maybe you're like, nope, I'm done. That's all the crow for me today. When you are finished with that exploration, you've removed your straps, you slid your blocks off to the side. We're gonna lay belly down onto the mat. Go ahead and bend the elbows, maybe stack the hands. Rest the forehead onto the hands. And then just take several breaths here. Think about softening through the hip flexors. If you've connected to the breath, perhaps you return to that practice of extending each exhalation. So maybe you inhale to 3 or 4, and you exhale to the count of 5 or 6. Begin to notice how the body softens in toward the mat, how the body surrenders. One more breath here. And then begin to slide your forearms to the ground, setting up for Sphinx pose. Keep the arms parallel, spread through the fingers. Keep the pubic bone pressing to the ground. And then imagine, see if you can drag your chest forward, stretching through the belly, lifting up. Take another breath here, very active. And then relax. Let the shoulders shrug up to the ears. Let the chin come down to the chest. We're going to do that 2 more times. This first time we do it, I want you to really soften through the legs, soften through the glutes. Let the activity come along the spine. As you're ready, press into the arms, lengthen through the belly, lift the chest, draw it forward. Try to keep the bones soft. And just notice how that feels in your body. And then release the activity, shrug the shoulders, tuck the chin. This next exploration, I want you to squeeze the glutes as much as you can. Really engage the legs. I tend to even press my toe print into the ground to get the entire leg involved. And then drag the chest forward. Keep squeezing through the glutes. Notice how that feels in your body. And then just let it go. Once more, lower onto your belly. Maybe you stack the opposite hand on top. Maybe this time you rest a cheek or your chin or your forehead to the hand. Sway the hips side to side. Maybe even bend the knees and just let the feet make circles or ovals in the sky. And then prepare, we're just gonna roll over onto our back. Flipping our bodies as if we were pancakes. I love that visual because every time I flip a pancake, the pancake cracks and falls. I never flip it beautifully. And that reminds me that when I flip my body, I don't have to be graceful about it. I'm just rolling. We're gonna bring our feet to the mat, knees to the sky for just a moment. And we're gonna take our right ankle, cross it over the left. So a traditional figure 4, but a little variation here. Your left foot, the one that's on the mat, pick it up and step it away from your body, just one footprint. And then take that right hand to your right thigh and just gently press the thigh away and then draw the thigh back in. So a little bit of wiggle here in our figure 4. And then pause in the wiggle. That left leg, stretch it all the way long on the mat. Extend the foot away from you. So instead of creasing at the hip, we are lengthening through the hip. You can take that right hand and still guide the right thigh away. Sometimes I'll actually like make a C shape with my hand. So my thumb comes around my bum and my fingers come around the top of the thigh, and I'll think about sliding that thigh away from my hips, creating space in there. And then release that. Stretch both legs long on the mat. Pause for a moment. Maybe even take a full body stretch if that feels good, just like we started class. And then figure 4 on the other side. So knees bend. Left leg crosses over the right. And we slide that right foot away, just one step, a little bit more length through the hip flexor. We allow the left hand to wiggle the left thigh. Almost like the leg is waving at us. And then we start to slide that right leg long on the mat, lengthen through the front of the right leg. If you like that tactile adjustment, that self-adjustment on the left leg, feel free to do it. If you don't want it, that's fine. Just let it go.
Thanks, Catherine.
You're welcome, love. See you soon. Stretch the left leg long on the mat. Reach the hands back behind you. Oh, full body stretch. And then once more, bend the knees. Place the feet on the mat. This time, widen the feet. Let the toes come far apart. And then knees cape in toward one another. Several breaths here. Every exhale, softening through the bum, spreading across the base of the body. Perfect. You're welcome to stay like this for Shavasana. You're welcome to stretch the legs long and come into that traditional corpse pose. You're welcome in this class or any other yoga class to let that final resting pose bring ease to the body. To encourage the body to soften and to release any remaining tension. Begin to guide the awareness, returning it to the breath. Perhaps this time, exploring what it would feel like to extend the inhalation rather than the exhalation. To feel that drawing in of breath. To notice the rise and the fall of the chest. And then as you're ready, bring a little wiggle into fingers and toes. Little circling of wrists and elbows. Eventually, knowing that we make that transition into a comfortable seated shape. Inviting any additional movement that we need. When we arrive to that seated shape, take a moment and notice what touches the mat. Perhaps those parts of the body that touch the mat become heavier, grounded, supported. From that support, we lengthen through the spine. We lift up the ribs from the waist. We roll the shoulders around and down the back, and we gather palms together, thumbs toward the heart. A moment of peace, a moment of gratitude for one another, for the practice, for this safe space in which to explore and develop and strengthen our bodies. From my heart to each of yours, namaste.